Our guest, by the way, his book, Corporatism, The Secret Government of the New World Order. Yeah, he was in the conspiracy world for a while there, but you know what? I'm just going to let him tell the story. It's Jeffrey Grupp. How are you, Jeffrey?
Doing good. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, glad to have you. And I've got to mention how you actually got on. We have listeners that write in every once in a while, and will say, this guy be good or this guy be good, and you came across my desk, and the person was very enthusiastic and said, "Oh, he's absolutely would be on with the flat Earth theory," and I thought, all right, so I called you, and yeah, our conversation went really well. So why don't you give us a little backstory on how exactly you used to be heavy into the conspiracy stuff, but you got out in about 2010. Is that about right?
Yeah, late 2010. I became a conspiracy theorist in '04.
Yeah.
And then went pretty heavy. I wrote a book from '04 to '07, Corporatism, and then I wrote a couple other books and had a radio show called Antimatter Radio from 2009 and 2010.
Yeah.
And that went well. And I got a little spooked at the end. Some strange things happened, and I didn't know exactly. I had some weird threats and some other weird things that happened. And, I've got a family and stuff, and I just kind of got spooked. And
yeah.
I wasn't into the sort of Alex Jones, we got to be tough and fight him and all that. I was more of, kind of afraid of negative ramifications, thinking that.
I remember your antimatter radio, by the way. That
do
was
you?
good stuff. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Yeah, I've been trying to get it going again, but I've just been so busy through the years. Then through a couple years after that, I just pondered things and digested all the information from the antimatter years. And then I went back into teaching, taught at U of Michigan Dearborn for a couple years.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did a lot of research on simulation theory, the idea that physical reality is a computer simulation. I did a big talk on that at U of M Dearborn.
Yeah.
And that was my exit, though. Then I quit in 2013. And then really 2013 to earlier this year, I learned to play the didgeridoo and just made shamanic, sort of psychedelic sci-fi shamanic music.
Yeah.
And put out a couple CDs. And then on April 14, everything in my life changed.
Uh-oh.
My wife was in a big car crash with all 4 kids in our Jeep.
Yeah.
And a teenager smashed her from the back. And just to make a long story short, a number of really strange events happened that I actually have become a Christian since that, because I understand all the contradictions and craziness and the history, and I get it. I understand how weird Christianity seems to a lot of people and stuff, but I really don't have any choice. I've got to go that way from what I witnessed.
Yeah.
Just a bunch of strange things. So, and that's where I am now. And I ran into Flat Earth about a month before that April 16 event,
Mm-hmm.
and really have been. I sort of thought about it for a while, and I was ready for the theory. Almost like, when you get a theory and you sort of intuit it, you're like, yeah, that's what I've been waiting for. It was kind of one of those. I wasn't afraid of it at all. I just dove right in.
Yeah.
I didn't really start researching it until maybe early mid-April, and just really been plowing through it since. And I think it's sort of the theory everybody needs. I think a lot of people out there are afraid of it, but I think it's the exact theory that can give us all happiness and make sense out of our lives and give our lives meaning. And we can get into some of these reasons why, but
Yeah.
If we can get out of this ridiculous universe that the academic world has shown us, the dominator paradigm the academic world is a result of the dominator paradigm, and that we're all brainwashed with here, and I was going to say planet Earth, but I should say flat Earth, and so anyway, that's kind of where I'm at. I think it's a theory that has a possibility for really catching on, because the churches might get on board with this. It's, on the one hand, it's a theory that's more shocking than 9/11, and 9/11 is such that we had a couple televisual images on the screen that we were shown. The Pentagon, the windows weren't broken before the roof collapsed there.
Yeah.
And, we saw Building 7, and we saw the weird, a lot of weird, we had some televisual images that made a lot of us conspiracy theorists. But this flat Earth is completely different. It's, you don't need televisual images. You just need your own life and your experience through your life.
Yeah.
and you can verify it all directly. I mean,
Yeah.
it's pure, well, what science is supposed to be, where you verify things with your own eyes. That's what flat Earth really is.
Yeah.
And well, so anyways, that's a warm up of how I got
Yeah,
where I am.
that's fantastic stuff. Did you, by the way, I didn't even ask, when you ran into it, was it just kind of a YouTube glancing thing? Was it like a recommended for you option
I
on
got
this?
it. I've got some good friends from antimatter days that I still talk to regularly, and I got a friend named Luke that he and I talk on Facebook every night and talk about everything, philosophical issues, whatever we want. And he ran it across me back in, I think, March,
Yeah.
early March, and I just couldn't believe it. I said, "This is what we need." It was almost like I knew it was coming, or something, that my life was going to change by this theory.
Was it, because there's a lot of stuff out there. Was it mine? Was it Eric's? Was it,
It was yours, Mark. It
Wow.
was your flat Earth clues, I believe.
wow.
Sent to me. Yeah.
Because every once in a while, well, more often than not, I'll say, oh yeah, I looked at, like five or six other people, and then I finally got to yours. And it's like, oh, right on, fine, I'm glad they did. But so when you got into it, you just ran through the clues, and then what? Just started digesting everything you could as
Well, I think what happened is I watched all yours, and then I sat on it for a while,
Yeah.
and maybe even 2 weeks or so, and just really thought about it, and just wanted to make sure I wasn't diving. I wanted to make sure I was using my time wisely in what I was diving into, and I was just being cautious, but I knew the whole time that this is where the evidence is falling. And I had noticed a lot of things in studying astronomy. I used to be an astrophysics student at Michigan State. That's when I started college before I transferred to U of New Mexico
Yeah.
to study anthropology and philosophy. I was an astrophysics student. And I remember back then in the 90s seeing all kinds of things that just didn't make sense to me, but my professors sort of wouldn't talk to me about them and would ignore a lot of them, and a lot of weird things about gravity and
yeah.
light angles and planets and so forth and solar system formation. And I remember thinking, this is all kind of theoretical,
Yeah.
a lot of this stuff. And so I was ready for something that I could verify with
Yeah.
my own eyes, and something that made sense and solved so many quirky, weird things about the world and science, and a theory that made everything fit so much better.
Yeah, yeah, that was the part that was bugging me. I came from, a different sect, the design standpoint, and as I kept staring at it, I kept saying the same. It's like, man, it works so much better this way. Even to the point where when I did a thing on Canary Cry Radio, and he came up with one of the hosts came up with the idea, Basil, I think, who said that he goes, you know what? He goes, even time travel works better in this system. It was amazing because he goes, nothing moves. So even time travel, you don't have to deal with a spinning planet and a rotating planet. It was really an amazing thing to watch. It solved so many questions for me, to the point where I was banging, probably like you, I was banging my head on the desk going, how did I miss this? How? And then I started, and then it got me. It's not that I missed it; everybody missed it.
Yeah.
That's
Sorry,
pretty
John.
interesting. Wait, from a time travel standpoint, you mean as far as XYZ coordinates?
Yeah, because
Let-
there's so many more calculations you have to take into consideration when you're doing time travel. It's not just that you have to deal with the space, but it's like the Earth isn't there. If you're trying to like deal with a fixed point, you could be beaming yourself to a certain place, but you have to take into account that the Earth is actually circling the sun and it's spinning at the same time. If you say that it's now stationary in an enclosed system, you can wipe out tons of math off the blackboard. You can say, oh yeah, we're just moving from this point to this point, and you
Point in time. Yeah.
yeah, you don't have to worry about physical location. But yeah, exactly what you were saying, Jonathan. It's again, I'm not taking credit for that one. That was a great thing. So those of you who are doing time travel, yeah, think about that.
That's a good
Don't you
point.
guys think? I mean, flat Earth is truly a start over. I mean, a lot of people. I've been listening to a lot of people on YouTube. I've got a number of books that I've bought, and I haven't even. This is so new. I mean,
Yeah.
we're all so new to this.
Oh yeah, yeah. People,
That I haven't even had time to read the books. And I mean, I may say things tonight that are wrong, or that later on are hashed out better, and people find better ways to say them, and we modify the theories. I mean, we're at this could be an all-out revolution. I mean, who knows? Maybe it'll just be like 9/11 conspiracy theory, and it'll be really big in conspiracy circles, but then the mass media, Mythbusters will get down there and put out a bunch of garbage, and then everybody will believe it, and then it'll just be shot down.
And normally I'd agree with you, but I don't think, and yeah, I'm not a big fan of Mythbusters, especially once they did that laser reflector test. And by the way, that laser reflector test, here's a perfect example. The Jeranism test they did recently, where all of a sudden he realized that, oh, hey, by the way, we're getting a 2-foot beam dispersion pattern every mile. So at 4 miles, it was a 10-foot freaking circle. I'm going, okay, wait a minute. If the moon is 237,000 miles away, that's a freaking, what, 500,000 feet, roughly, dispersal pattern. So what the heck did they hit with that beam? It's like, I don't care how powerful, you must have had the greatest laser in the world to have hit this thing, because it would have spread to a point where you couldn't have hit that target. 500,000 feet is just way, way too big. Plus, there would have been no energy left in it. But that's a whole nother thing. To answer your question, though, I disagree with the comparison to 9/11, because this is way, way more fundamentally relevant. People can ignore 9/11. That's the difference. People can sweep that under the rug and bury those secrets forever. This is here. This is where you are. And which is, again, why the debate is so hot right now. People get physically angry. People will actually go out and make videos and say, "Oh, this is the silliest thing in the world," and then they get trapped. They get into that Pandora's box.
Well, flat Earth touches everything. It touches religion, mind, pretty much every single thing you've ever thought, or any theory you've ever been spoon-fed.
Yeah.
Everything has to be questioned now. Everything starts over. 9/11, politics look different all of a sudden. A lot, wars look different. History looks different.
Yeah.
But now you look into the sky, and people are going to have to start wondering what exactly they're looking at. For example, I mean, the basic stuff.
Yeah.
Everything is a start over, it would seem, with flat Earth theory.
Yeah, academia takes. Oh, I feel bad because as I mentioned, universities, the astrophysics and the astronomy departments, those have to be literally torn down and rebuilt from scratch. But even the physical sciences, geology, hydrology, geography, archaeology, carbon dating, all that stuff, that has to be retooled to fit a completely new model, which ironically is the old model.
Well, the scientific method will have to be torn down, because the scientific method has that crutch in it, which is about hypothesis. And see what the professional academics do is they run away with that and turn professional science into theory land, which is all just a bunch of junk. A house of cards is what academic science has turned into. Take out, the bottom rung of the house of cards being called theory.
Yeah.
And all that's going to have to be redone.
Yeah.
And
people asked me, I had a couple people ask me, incredulously, saying that, do I think that Stephen Hawking and Albert Einstein were wrong? And I go, it has nothing to do with being right and wrong. Their theories, I'm sure they were brilliant men. I mean, obviously they had the math, but all their theories were based off a flawed foundation. So yeah, fine. Their papers, fantastic. You made the model fit, great. But everything you were based on, everything you had based your stuff on, and that person before you, going back generation after generation, that was wrong. So yeah, I feel bad, but it's just the way it is. I mean,
but don't you think though that they get handed the script at some point, like, so they're not going down that road?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because these are smart men that probably come to dead ends in their equations and say, wait a minute.
I don't know. I mean, why do we think Einstein's so smart? He comes up with this idea, curved space. I mean, it doesn't even make any sense. He's talking about an invisible thing, space, and he's saying it's curved. Nobody has any idea what he's talking about. People write academic papers on it for 100 years, or sorry, not 100 years, but almost. We're getting there.
Yeah.
And, it's just a big waste of everybody's time. I remember when I was a PhD student at Purdue in philosophy, I took a class called Einstein's Philosophy.
Yeah.
And I remember one of the first days in the class, I asked the professor, I said, look, we're talking about doing mathematical equations on curved space. Does this really exist, or is this just Einstein's conception of what he thinks is going on in reality, but nobody really knows what he's talking about, and we don't know really what we're applying this mathematics to.
Yeah.
And everybody worships Einstein like he had everything right. Well, how about the speed of light? I've got an article here right in front of me I was going to talk about you guys.
Sure.
To you guys. There's questions about. I know that if we watch the Discovery Channel and we sit through our physics classes in the university, everybody says, the speed of light is the most perfectly verified, blah, blah, blah. And if you question it, that's almost the fundamentalism of science really kicks in if you start questioning the speed of light, because it just can't be questioned. It has to be absolute fact, and there's no possibility it could be wrong. And you know what? And if you ask to say why, they'll say, well, because then it violates causality. You say, whoa, wait a minute. What do you mean violates causality? I thought we were talking about science. Causality is a philosophical concept about the idea that a cause comes before effect. You're telling me that all of this stuff about the speed of light being so incredibly important is based on a philosophical concept which nobody even can observe anyway. I mean, somebody point at a cause and effect to me, and you'll say, well, I saw the apple fall and it made a sound on the ground, cause, effect. I'm saying, no, you're looking at an apple and you're hearing a sound. That's two sense experiences. I want you to show me the cause and show me the effect. And what we come up with is it's just philosophical concepts. When I was a grad student at getting my master's degree at Western Michigan, I took a class called causation. Man, we went through that class for 16 weeks, plowing through every philosophical theory on what causation is, and nobody could even figure out what it is. Every single explanation reduced to a contradiction.
Got it.
And you know what, guys? If the speed of light, I've got an experiment right here. Let's see, where is it? Well, I'll find it here in just a second.
Yeah.
But it's well known. Yeah, it's here we go. Professor L.J. Wang, in a very well-known experiment in the journal Nature, page 406, or it's 406, space 277 in the year 2000.
Yeah.
He came up with that experiment where he measured the speed of light to be 300 times greater than what it is. And there's been a whole bunch of experiments done about, like this, where the speed of light is. But what happens is then is the professional academics come out with a whole huge wad of theory for us on why, no, it really didn't go faster than the speed of light. Listen, as I'm looking at physicsworld.com here, an article called Laser Smashes Light Speed Record, July 19, 2000, the second paragraph, 4 lines in, they say a pulse of light can have more than one speed because it's made up of light of different wavelengths. Oh, and you know what my response to that is? Really? Well, can you point to that for me, or is this just some wild theory?
Yeah.
Somebody point to me of the wavelength of a light. Nobody's ever seen the wavelength of a light. You can measure light particles acting on a screen in wave-like patterns, but nobody knows exactly what a wave of light does, since a light is made up of quanta, photon particles.
Yeah.
So the point here with talking about the speed of light, why this is so relevant to flat Earth, is because of the sky. Everybody's wondering, okay, flat Earth makes a lot of sense. It's really an awesome thing and so forth, and the evidence is just astounding. But what in the world are we seeing up in the sky? And so everybody first starts pointing to speed of light, Big Bang cosmology, black holes. All of it makes sense. It's perfectly verified. Don't question Einstein, because the fundamentalists in science are going to attack you and say that you're just a quack and a religious nut or something.
Yeah.
But you know what? It is all questionable, and it isn't verified properly. And there's huge, massive questions everywhere that academics just cover up with theory. And we don't know what is going on with the speed of light and what we're seeing, what the light information from the sky is bringing to us. And we have to start over with everything that we're theorizing is going on up there.
Excellent. Nice. It's well put, and an angle that I don't think anybody's touched on yet.
It's absolutely critical.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, people are tricked by this. You watch the Discovery Channel and think you're getting good science. All this Einstein stuff is coming up on 100 years old. Well, some of his first paper he won the Nobel Prize for, I think, is over 100 years old now. And then all the relativity stuff is, 80 or so years ago?
Yeah.
There's been a whole lot of stuff that's happened since then. And remember we were talking about causality a little while ago? It's a real simple concept. Cause has to happen before effect. Mm-hmm. And if something goes faster than the speed of light, physicists freak out because causality is violated. Who cares, really? Maybe that's how nature works. You know what? Quantum physics, you guys probably don't already know this as well as I do. Quantum physics has an absolute obliteration of the philosophy of causation. It simply doesn't exist. That's been everybody's big problem with quantum physics, the study of the little building blocks that make up everything.
Yeah.
They don't follow cause and effect properly. So what's everybody complaining and worrying about the speed of light violating cause and effect?
Yeah, good point.
Well, see,
go ahead, Jonathan.
I was going to say, I've always looked at things different, that mankind, because, and maybe this is just men in general, because we can't create life from a natural form, we seem to replicate things from an analog to a digital, from an analog to a digital, all the way down. We keep simulating life in a mechanical means. Now, even going into the technocratic world that we're going into. So we kind of mimic what's found in nature, right, on a smaller scale. And from that sense, when you think about even movies like Tron or planes like that, we think in flat terms. because we're dealing with X, Y, Z coordinates in the third dimension, fourth dimension being time, and for all intents and purposes, the constant of time, which is, of course, light itself. But when you get into the fifth dimension, Tao time or real time, those things don't apply anymore. That's when you start getting into the quantum, and that's where you start getting into the soul and other aspects. I guess what I'm trying to say is, you mentioned, you're a Christian now as well.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm wondering how much of this comes into play, and not so much in conflict now with your Christian beliefs, but how you see it, the universe as being more dynamic from these different perspectives.
Well, I don't know much about Christianity. I've been a Buddhist since.
I hope I didn't go down a hard path on this one.
I won't waste a lot of time giving my life story, but I was a Buddhist from 1992 until, practicing Buddhist until about 2004. Really, I've been a really religious person into shamanism and Buddhism for 2 decades.
Yeah.
But what I experienced a couple things, and I just simply have no choice. I have to go down this new road. I'm kind of still getting used to it, and I wake up in the mornings. I'm like, oh yeah, that's who I am now. It's kind of one of those. And it's been, I don't know much about Christianity, and but I do, to my knowledge, it is purely a flat earth book. I mean, Genesis 1, the first the waters are created, and then the earth is with its corners and stuff is placed on the waters, and there's pillars and
the 4 corners of the earth. I mean, there's a guy on this network, Rob Skiba, who
he is great.
He ran with this. He interviewed me, and he was a skeptic, and he turned around, and now he's done just hours and hours and hours.
Yeah,
and
stuff.
Every chapter and verse going down that road, and people say, aren't you going to go down more of that road? I was going, I don't have to. That train's already left. It's going. He can run with that. In fact, he's writing a book on this. I guarantee he'll probably be the guy that, now he may be the first guy that touches on flat Earth, but it will be from a Christian point of view. I guarantee that. 3 minutes and change until the break. I wanted to ask you real quick, since we're on the quantum physics side. And you're obviously familiar with just about, you're way more academically versed than I am. I can tell you that right
Unfortunately.
now. But I gotta ask you, because a bunch of people have sent this to me. The double slit experiment. Mm-hmm. Every time I look at that, whether it's a YouTube video on it or the book, where the particle is a wave and the way basically that nothing happens until it's observed. When I look at that, I keep thinking, it's like, how are physicists comfortable with that without being spiritual? Because it goes from a mechanical standpoint, it sure points, the double slit experiment points to intelligent design to me more.
How so?
Well, because it doesn't, you're basically, unless I'm getting this wrong, it answers the question of, if a tree falls in the woods and no one's there to see it, does it make a sound? Well, no, because the tree, and we only know this from the gaming world now, no, because the tree doesn't exist. It hasn't been rendered yet from a programming standpoint. Therefore, so what's making it act that way? And you can talk about the physical laws all you want, but that's pretty spooky. Every time I look at that, I want to ask Neil deGrasse Tyson that. It's like, what, you're perfectly fine with the double slit experiment, the fact that nothing exists until it's observed? That, to me, you got an opinion on it at all? Not that much?
There's no. I published an academic article on the 2-slit experiment called Neurological Nihilism back in 2007.
Okay.
Section in there was on the double slit experiment. That experiment, there's basically what it is a couple of really interesting phenomena happening. You shoot the particles through the slit, or through the apparatus, and then you do it one at a time. And then you go to lunch and let it keep shooting one particle at a time, and then you come back and it forms a wave pattern on the screen. You're like, whoa, how did that happen?
Yeah.
How can you have one? Usually you think of waves like in Lake Michigan or something. Waves are particles acting together.
Yeah, the interference
How
pattern.
did one at a time particles form a wave? So here, physicists, their answer is to say that a particle is both a wave and is particle and wave. I never really understood where that interpretation came from.
Yeah.
It's a particle, you're shooting it through and it makes a wave pattern.
Yeah.
But how do we all of a sudden say the particle is a wave, which is a Taoist contradiction, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of spiritual. Yeah, I mean, I just don't. I think it's all a ridiculous. I mean, when you get, there's empiricism and observation on the one hand, and then there's academia, which is filled with theory.
Yeah.
Academics are not good theory makers, unfortunately,
Yeah.
and they don't understand that about themselves, and they have this weird thing about thinking that they're actually scientists, which are supposed to be basing their views of the world on empirical experience, and it's really just simply not doing that. You go through all the big theories,
Yeah.
plate tectonics. Let's take that one. Nobody's ever seen a tectonic plate.
Yeah.
There's another theory called expanding Earth, and the globe model, that is,
Yeah.
which perfectly explains, probably even better explains all these features, mountain ranges and stuff on planet Earth.
Yeah.
But they just pick and choose one theory over the other, and then castigate and laugh at everybody else who disagrees, and get on they go on the History Channel or Discovery Channel and say anybody who disagrees with us is just a nut job, or is not an expert, does not know the experts' research and so forth. That's just the dominator paradigm. The dominator paradigm is when you think you're right and everybody's wrong,
Yep.
even though you can't verify properly your position.
Yep. And with that, we are going to go to break, and we'll be right back with more Jeff. Welcome back to Strange World. I'm your host, Mark Sargent, with Jonathan and Jeffrey Grupp. We are talking about flat Earth and all the interesting things regarding it, and maybe some new angles you guys haven't thought about yet. So where we left off was, the fun stuff. It's like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Plate tectonics, no one's seen them, and don't let me get started on the core of the Earth. The fact that they've driven,
Which core?
Yeah, exactly.
There was like 4 of them.
Yeah. The pattern of oranges and reds leading to that white hot molten core, even though they've only drilled down 8 miles, which I touched on in Clue 6. And again, and they even preface it in the wiki thing. It's like, look, we extrapolated based on our observations of the stuff on the surface. Which is, their way of saying, well, we don't know, but we're just going to take a shot at this, and it was ridiculous. But I gotta ask it, because again, you're big into the scientific method, which means
Against the scientific method.
Well, I mean, I consider you a more harsh critic than most. If anyone would have had reason to dismiss it, being in academia as much as you have, it would be you. And so I got to ask you, what got you? What, as far as the flat Earth goes, what was the tipping point for you? I know mine.
Evidence-wise?
Yeah. What was it?
Well, the first thing that really caught me was those flights. I didn't think that was a smoking gun or proof or anything, but I was like, come on, you got to be kidding me. It is so perfectly matching the flat Earth scenario.
Yeah.
But I would say really what made me dive in and say, okay, we're doing this. The flat Earth is real is the sidereal year.
Yeah.
You know how the Earth on one side, if you're looking at the solar system from above on the solar system model, the unverified solar system model, you've got it. It's a disk, whereas the sun's at the middle and the Earth is spinning around, orbiting around.
Yeah.
One half the year the sun's shining out one way, and then you go on the other side. 6 months later it's shining a different way. It's kind of like, think of yourself if you're in a raft next to a lighthouse looking at the beach.
Okay.
And then you drift over to the other. So the lighthouse is shining on one half of your head.
Yeah.
Then you drift over to the other side, and you're still facing the beach because your orientation shouldn't change at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then the sun is shining on your head on the opposite side.
Mm-hmm.
Now that is of course analogous to the solar system model, and what should happen is where the sun is shining on Earth in one half of the year, that's midnight is dark, and then on the other side, 6 months later, midnight should be kind of like noon.
Yep.
Now, what do? They come up with this idea called, the sidereal year, where I think it's 4 minutes. A day is actually 23 hours and 56 minutes and a couple seconds or something, 4
Something like
seconds.
that, yeah.
I mean, so what that means is, this is great. What that means is that the sun always perfectly is in the same, morning is always morning, night is always night. It varies a little bit with daylight savings and seasons and so forth. But basically, you don't have a situation like on Venus where the day lasts about the same time as a year, or on Jupiter where the day only lasts 9 hours, but then the year is a couple decades or something.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. The rotation matches up it syncs up with us. Basically, that you're right. It doesn't keep overlapping and doing a weird thing like you're being lapped around a track.
Well, what the sun is doing looks exactly like a flat Earth scenario. But then, see, what you have to do with the solar system model is come up with the most insane, ridiculous, crazy one in a trillion, trillion, trillion coincidences. Like, oh, the moon and the sun are exactly the same size, and rough, more,
Yeah, even
so
though
to speak, exactly the same size in the sky. And then the sidereal year, just happens to be that day always stays kind of the same throughout the year.
Yeah.
You get all these crazy, insane coincidences. Yeah, have you guys ever known that? I did a video called "You Are a Simulation." It's on my YouTube channel.
Okay.
And I go through how the universe the solar system. I wasn't a flat earther at that time when I made it, but the Earth, Sun, Moon system, the motions of those, the orbits and motions of those three bodies are all divisible by factorials. 1 factorial, 2 factorial, 3 factorial.
Okay.
The mathematical phenomena of the factorials. I'm like, come on, really? I mean, how many coincidences do we have with the solar? I mean, it all would be fine.
Yeah.
If we had an intelligent designer, a super mind that created it all and put it into places they wanted it. Yeah. But of course, the academics demand that we don't do that. So their system is just complete. One in, you guys familiar with the number Googleplex? It's like 1 to 100 to 10.
Yeah.
It's like 1 to a Googleplex chance that this all makes sense. Yeah. I'm just like, forget it. It doesn't work. And then you go to the flat Earth and everything just makes complete sense. Oh yeah, the sun comes up.
Yeah.
I don't know if I buy the whole law of perspective. I mean, I understand what everybody's saying, but I mean, I'm just going to take my time and I'm not going to rush into, okay, so flat Earth, I'm on board.
Yeah.
But I mean, I want to be careful. I'm seeing, I've seen some people out there. I've had some people yell at me lately about, no, it's law of perspective. How dare you? They're kind of doing the same fundamentalism that the academics are doing.
Yeah.
Like you can't question their unverified theory.
Yeah.
It's like law of perspective. I'm wondering, well, wouldn't I see a glow in the distance all night long if that sun is just, way? I don't know. I just wonder about things. I'm just wondering. I don't want to believe something that hasn't been verified by my own eyes.
Yeah.
So
I used to mind the people that would come out, and get really angry and belligerent and just start swinging. I used to mind that, because I'd be like, okay, I understand it. You're upset, but now I actually welcome it because these same people will absolutely turn. They've already opened the box, and there's too many big questions out there. I mean, yeah, they might be able to deal with the curvature and the gravity thing and the Coriolis effect, but eventually they're going to have to deal with the big questions like the planes, or Antarctica, or the lack of exterior space shots, with anything, all
with
those
no stars,
or with no stars, or I don't know, no pictures of the Earth from space, that stuff, and that drives them nuts to the point where they just it keeps how people get it sticks in their head. It's like, well, I can solve it, and then sooner or later it's like, crap, I can't solve it. And then they're in trouble. And again, if it was just one thing or two things, like you were saying with the coincidence, if it was just 1 or 2 points, maybe they could pass it off. But look, we're going on month 5 now since this thing's really broke open. And no one's, the internet hive mind works not only for the benefit, but the detractors also have the internet hive mind, and they're not doing it. They're not knocking this thing down.
Well, there's no counter evidence. I mean, usually, I expect something's going to show up soon. And if you're a flat earth, usually when a new theory is formed, you got more evidence on one side than the other, but you've got counterpoints that you have to deal with. And maybe it'll take you a decade to figure it out. And then the theory will change and you need new observations and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But we don't even have any counter evidence right now. Coriolis effect doesn't work. I hear all what's the guy in the weather report saying it's a mirage? All of a sudden,
the Chicago
cities, they're not. Usually a mirage, like that Rob guy you were just mentioning. He was saying, usually a mirage is kind of has some oscillations in it, and so it's not a perfect picture.
Exactly. The Chicago skyline mirage.
Yeah.
That's perfectly formed. It's not tilting. All the lights are there. It's not wavering. It cuts off at the horizon. And it's perfect. It's not wavy palm trees type of mirage.
But remember the boat that supposedly has part of its hull under the water, that can't be a mirage.
Oh yeah, that can't be a mirage. Oh no, we'll let that one in. Even though that edited footage, they don't even do a time lapse. It's all this, clunk, clunk, clunk. This,
what's the deal with that?
I
was watching some, I was like, okay, cool. I was watching a video of like 10 people talking. I'm like, all right, maybe they'll get some good counter evidence for me to consider.
Yeah.
The first thing they do is they show that boat going over the, sinking below the horizon, and it was like animation, or they chopped it all up, and I'm like, what do you do?
Yeah.
I was like, okay, thanks for wasting my time.
Yeah.
Show me an edited video.
Yeah. Want to run something by you. So, as far as the flat Earth goes, I mentioned one of my clues that when I went to the initial Flat Earth Society, not the international one, but just the straight up one, I noticed there were dedicated trolls there that were trying to keep people out. There were two guys there that had and my cousin checked it out. There's like 10,000 posts between them. Literally, they've been there for years, just chasing people away. And so. My question to you was, do you think, other than that obvious thing, do you think that flat Earth has been subtly, what's the word for it, suppressed over the years, that people have been the powers that be have been kind of gently pushing people away without them knowing it? Is that
away from flat Earth theory?
Yeah.
Well, I've got a theory for you on what this whole thing's about. It's nothing new. I think Rob Skiba is getting at the same. I mean, a lot of people are.
Yeah.
But I mean, think about it. Okay, there's the three-layer cake, primitive metaphysics of reality. You got underworld, flat plane, and then the heavens. The ancient Maya, Christianity's got this. I mean, this is everywhere. Mm-hmm. And then, they might be correct. Okay, so. Yeah. The dominator paradigm, the scientists come along and say, they're all wrong and we're right. We can't verify it properly, but we're right. Believe us, or we're going to make fun of you and go on History Channel and make fun of you if you don't agree, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And, but think about it. If that paradigm was correct, what else are they correct about? What else were the primitives correct about? What else are all the shamanic cultures in Christianity correct about, and so forth? And you know what? They all not only in general all agree on the flat Earth three-layer cake model with underworld in the middle, or underneath. Sorry, I was reading your guys' Skypes as I'm talking.
That's okay.
You mean the underworld, then the Middle Earth, and then the upper world, which is the heavens. You know what? If that model is correct, when we're looking up into the sky,
yeah,
you're looking into the heavens. You'll forget what you think the speed of light is telling you.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what Plato said. He said that if you look into the sky, you're seeing gods.
Yeah.
The first gods are the lower gods are the planets, and then you get to more, closer to the heavens, you get the stars. Those are gods. Yep. What if that was correct? Because these people, it looks like we're correct on flat Earth, and the dominator paradigm was wrong. What if they're right on that also? Then here's the point. All of a sudden, you've got God right there. I mean, you're looking up into the sky, and you know that you're just one little dome ceiling or whatever vault, like Genesis says, or I think in Isaiah, Rob Skiba was talking about how it's called a tent, like a tent roof or something, the dome roof of the earth. I mean, right there is the gateway to heaven. Forget this idea that it's far away or it's obscure thing that science has disproven. Forget all. You can throw all that away.
Yeah.
It's all right there. You can feel a supermind, a creator, some kind of supernatural intelligence looking down at you. I mean, everything changes, start over, game over, new game starts.
Wow. That's
my theory.
That's heavy.
You keep all that stuff far away, and we all know, all us conspiracy theorists, we all know what this Illuminati culture is about, and it's about smashing spiritual experience, smashing spiritual ecstasy, and I think it targets Christianity more than anything, but really, the whole thing, we're all supposed to be atheists and believe in evolution and the infinite, almost seemingly infinite void of nature, which has no purpose, no meaning. You're just going to die. Your life is a joke. Go work in your stupid cubicle and like it, or else we're going to call you mentally ill.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And when I got to clues 10 and 11, when I did hiding God and souls in the system, that's what I was really touching on, and that was, look, this model changes everything spiritually. It does. We are not this lone little speck flying through space that apparently nobody's worried about. You'd think we'd come up with a defense system since we're vulnerable to just about everything that's flying through space. And instead, we're in again, I don't like to necessarily use the kittens in the box thing because we tend to be dangerous, but we're in a safe environment. That there was nothing ever really going to happen to us. Yeah, you're right. The spiritual growth and what we could be, what we could become, develop as people, was stunted to the nth degree. I absolutely believe that.
Yeah, I remember when I used to teach, I became a non-atheist, and I wasn't an atheist until 04-ish or so.
Yeah.
And then I was an agnostic for a couple years. And then when I became a conspiracy theorist, no, for a short time. Then when I became a conspiracy theorist, I started really kind of I thought Christianity I wasn't a Christian really.
Yeah.
But I kind of believed all that stuff was correct. I'm like, man, Christianity really lines up well with conspiracy theory. And the Illuminati system seems to really attack Christianity in real specific, clear ways. And I just was kind of wondering. But, I forgot what I was going to say. Too little of sleep. Anyway, sorry. What were you just saying?
That's okay. That's okay. Well, let me change gears here because I actually, when we were talking, you had asked me about a certain video that was out there about centrifugal force. And
my video.
Yeah, and I had no idea. I had actually watched that video, because I go on, and people don't understand that I literally will go on, every couple hours and go into YouTube, type in flat Earth, set the filter to today, and see what's up there. And I caught that video a while ago. Can you give me a little rundown, or for the people that are listening?
Well, I wanted to just make a video without really taking a side. And everybody's talking about there's some old arguments, if the Earth stopped with the, take the Coriolis effect. Everybody's kind of got a different take on that. I was watching there's that video everybody's talking about where the guy shoots the gun, and he says the bullet leaves the surface of the Earth. Well, I'm like, okay, well, if I'm driving in a car and we're playing catch with a ball, does the ball leave the surface of the Earth every time it leaves my hand? No.
Yeah.
Everybody's just kind of making whatever up that they want to.
Yeah.
And, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to try. I used to be an astrophysics student. I know a little bit of physics. I'm going to try to see I don't know if I did that right, but I'm waiting for somebody to show me if I did the math wrong or something. But basically what I did is I said, okay, let's compare a merry-go-round. If you bring it up to 10 miles an hour, kids start flying off of it and everything, is the centrifugal force, what is that centrifugal force in a merry-go-round compared to let's forget this, the Earth going around the galaxy and all this other stuff in the
just
Dominator worldview. Let's just take only the Earth 1,000 miles an hour, 1,016 miles an hour at the equator. And what I got was, if I did it correct, that is, somebody maybe have to modify, who knows?
We'll see.
People need to check it.
Yeah.
And I got that the centrifugal force at the equator was 1/34th of the centrifugal force of the merry-go-round. I was like, well, that's unbelievable. Okay, because I know if I'm in an elevator, the second it moves, even if it barely moves, I can tell.
Yeah.
The second a car moves, I can tell. We had an earthquake here again yesterday. We had the second one we've had in a couple months. And man, people were feeling it all over the place. You couldn't see anything move. You could nothing, but everybody, all kinds of people knew. If you could, the human body is so incredibly fine-tuned to motion that I've got to believe that if I'm going, if a merry-go-round is at full speed, and I've got it's just simply 1/34th the centrifugal force, I'm going to feel it. There's going to be times during the day. I'll get used to it after a while, walking around in it, but there's going to be times during the day I have to make sure to kind of modify. If I'm switching directions, walking, I have to account for and make up for, my feeling this centrifugal force spin and so forth. So, but what everybody's going to probably say is, oh no, you can't, you can't feel it.
They'll probably say it's much more of a much more remote fraction, but at the same time, I don't know if it was you that said
but the first second.
Oh, I gotcha.
That merry-go-round moves, you feel it, and that's going to be under a 34th. That's going to be 100th or something.
Got it. Sorry,
go ahead, I interrupted you.
And was it you that also said, because we talked earlier, that if somebody was living in the northern, way up north, like say in Alaska, and they moved to say Ecuador, or somewhere near the equator, wouldn't their body have to adjust slightly to the forces, because their body would be used to a much slower spin?
Well, I don't think that was me, but yeah, that makes sense. You're gonna, when I got married, I took my honeymoon right near the equator, and obviously I didn't feel anything, and I live up here in Michigan, so that's according to the globe model, that's an awful big spin difference.
Yeah.
I just think that my point in making that video was let's put some math, let's use their math, their globe model, and figure out if any of it makes sense. And I think, frankly, what we need to do is get a bunch of people on a merry-go-round, get a big merry-go-round, make it 130, spin it so it has the exact same centrifugal force that the Earth does, and let's see if they don't feel it. You're going to have people stumbling around. I don't know about stumbling. You're going to have people feeling it all the time. And the way I know that is because I've been on merry-go-rounds, because I've got kids.
Yeah.
And I know that the first second you feel it.
That's good. I like that.
The point is it's verifiable. All we need to do is do an experiment.
Yeah,
it's simple.
You're right. It's good. I like that one. The would you agree? And I know you probably heard me say this on another one. The gravity experiment that people have brought up to me before, and that was if because the centrifugal force is going to try to push off at the center. So if you have let's say 100-pound weight at the North Pole and you move it down to the equator, shouldn't it be measurably? I mean, again, maybe not a pound, maybe not even an ounce, but we have
measurable.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
different weight.
We've got some some very precise devices now, and I would think that it would weigh slightly less. I don't think that test has ever been done.
Well, Mark, the whole planet on the Dominator view of the globe model is just deformed because of the spin, but nobody can feel it, nobody can measure it. We can't, right. I mean, just nobody's done it because science is controlled by the National Science Foundation, which is government.
Yeah.
That's why everybody, when they hear about, oh, my professor in college, he said he was up all night trying to write his grant for his funding. Well, what they're doing is they're writing to the government, the NSF, to try to get money, and they're trying to get their experiments approved so in other words, what that means is the whole scientific world in America is in the universities is controlled by just a couple people in the government. And these professors, they will do what they will do what gets approved because they need the money to keep that lab running. And that's why nobody's doing these experiments. That's why everybody's building nuclear weapons and more mind control TV crap on at all these universities.
So the system is set up to just perpetuate the myth for so long. They don't even have to tell. There doesn't even have to be that many people in the know because the system automatically is generating more and more people who will never question it. Because
everybody says, "Oh, there couldn't be all the professors wrong. They can just study." People don't have any clue how the university works. They can't just study what they're scared. They're desperate. They're overworked. They need money. They need to get publications. They need the grad students to do well. They need all this stuff. Nobody's sitting around thinking, "Hey, you know what? Everybody's getting their money and their scientific their scientific research approved by just a teeny little group in the most corrupt organization in the world, the U.S. Nazi government."
Yeah. Wow.
Unbelievable. And nobody can see this.
No, nobody has seen it.
This isn't my opinion. Just go anybody listening, just go ask your biology professor, where do you get your money? They're going to say NSF.
People, ask. Go out there and ask. Seriously. Before we got 6 minutes to the break, but I want to open this subject because I know it'll probably take a little longer than what we have before we go to the break. Your views on space, on space itself, where we are, just your take. I mean, you know my take. I believe we're an enclosed system. There are other people in the flat Earth movement, that say it's an infinite plane, that there's space. They follow the strict geocentric model where we are actually a center, and there really is a solar system that's whirling around us. Which again, I understand. Either way, it's still not a globe. I'm still covered.
I take the position, I hear so many people against the flat Earth model saying, hey, everything in the sky is a ball, so therefore we have to be a ball on Earth. I mean, that's like saying the guy who lives on a planet that's a cube, and in his reality, for the sake of example, everything in the sky is spinning triangles, and he says, oh, I have to live in a spinning triangle, but he can't verify it. I mean, he doesn't sound too intelligent when he does that. If you're following my hypothetical example.
Yep.
What I do is you start over. If there's problem, if you're honest and you don't follow the pressure and the conformity of the professional scientific fundamentalism, you're going to realize there's problems with the speed of light. There's problems with this whole take dark matter. I mean, they can't figure out gravity. So instead of saying, hey, you know what? Let's rethink gravity, because it was invented by Newton with using terrestrial dynamics hundreds of years ago. Instead of questioning that, let's invent an invisible thing called dark matter, and let's have our whole metaphysics, keyword there, metaphysics of the universe, described by this invisible thing. So in other words, our whole metaphysics of reality in the professional academic world is described by invisible theoretical constructs. We have to start over is where I go with, flat Earth shows us we just simply start over, ground zero, first step. What are we seeing in the sky? In my opinion, the key word is opinion, because I can't verify. I'm not the hero who's going to solve this for everybody and tell us what we're seeing in the sky.
Well, not yet.
But I think that the shamanic cultures and Plato and some of the religions, I'm going with their direction. when I used to do antimatter radio, we'd always say religion, if you want to know what's going on, follow. I'm not talking about a specific religion, really, but that's where you're finding stuff that really can check out and be verified with reality. I mean, what better example is there here than flat Earth?
Yeah.
But I mean, take Plato, for example. He said that, you look up in the sky and you see spiritual stuff. The shamanic culture is saying, the shaman goes into his drumming trance or his peyote trance or his didgeridoo trance, and then they say he ascends into the sky, which is the domain of ecstasy.
Yeah.
And then you've got Jesus here, ascending into the sky. Well, maybe the idea is because if that's where the heavens are, all you do is just go up a bit, and then you're in the heavens.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at. I mean, I know everybody's going to say, "Oh, this guy's the biggest idiot ever." I mean, you're not in this. He's saying he thinks that you're looking into the doorway to the heavens when you look in the sky. Well, what am I going to do? Believe the Dominator view or believe the flat earther ancient views, which look like they're checking out?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. People keep forgetting that the bulk of our culture, all the tribes, all the civilizations, all the religions, they all believed in the flat model, and they had to make. And I'm really surprised there wasn't more of a resistance. I know there was some when the Copernicus model came out, which was like, look,
Oh, I bet there was.
Because there were lots of cultures that said, look, there was discs in the sky. They weren't saying spheres. They all became spheres at once. We're a sphere, you're a sphere, everybody's a sphere. And that's a huge leap of faith for back then. And it took, again, 20 generations before now it appears that we're finally coming back around, which is great. But before we go to break, I got 2 minutes to break. I got to ask you, because I get this question every freaking week, because people keep wanting to hang on to this in stages, and they say, when we look through telescopes, I can see, they'll say, I have a telescope, I've seen Jupiter, I've seen Mars. What am I looking at? I tell them, it's like, what do you think you're looking at? And they say, oh, I think I'm looking at a sphere, and I said, well, maybe. What do you think they're looking at?
I think they're looking at things that are in the heavens, using the word heavens literally.
Nice. Do you think we're talking physical entities at that point?
How do you know? I mean, I used to be an astrophysics student at Michigan State. Like I said, we used to go around and mess around in telescopes, and we would see the moons of Jupiter going past Jupiter in real time just while we were staring at it in the telescope.
Yeah.
And, when you have to adjust the telescope because they'd move and so, out of our view. And, we haven't been there. I haven't been there. I'm guessing you guys haven't been to Jupiter. How do we know what we're looking at?
Good point. Good point.
I mean, until you can verify something, I'm not going to make up a bunch of theories personally.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
Can I say one thing? Yeah, I've been quiet this whole time. I'm going to be the George Norrie of the group tonight. I'm going to say NASA would never lie to us. I totally support the government and what they've told us so far. I've played with the globe.
Wow. Yeah, you see, Jonathan is still under the NASA payroll, and I switched over to the NSA. So for this particular assignment, so just a disclaimer. He doesn't
my checks actually go through the country of Greece before I get them there.
Nice. That's really good. Okay, what the heck's in the sky? If you're looking at the stars, you're looking at the planets, and Jeff, I got to jump in on this one because people have said to me, a couple times, they said, is it possible that when the ancient cultures were talking about Jupiter and Mars and Venus, and they were talking to them as physical beings, is it possible that these things in the sky could be actual physical sentient beings?
Well, like Plato said, they're souls. Well, seeing as how all of our information, 99.99 whatever percent of our information that we have about anything above about 1,000 feet over our head comes from NASA. Mm-hmm. I just basically, if you disregard all that, and there's, as everybody listening knows, there's tremendous reason to do that. Yeah. Then you have to rebuild a new metaphysics of what's in the sky. Yeah. It's difficult for people to do that because we do not realize how entrenched we are with the exciting space. Like you've talked a lot, Mark, about, the alien paradigm is so exciting. Let's put it in movies and cartoons, and people, you get that inculcated, from age, when you're about a fetus, it seems like.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to break out of that, and I think a lot of people like that. I like the mystery and intrigue and of deep space.
Yeah.
Well, you know what you're probably looking at is in the spiritual realms. And we talk, when you take the shaman in the rainforest and the Amazon, and he eats the ayahuasca, what's the DMT in there showing him? He's seeing beings and so forth. Well, you're probably seeing beings either in the upper heavenly worlds or in the underworlds. That's probably what actually is being viewed all the time. And the whole idea of aliens is just a misrepresentation.
Yeah.
That's what, that makes a little bit of sense too, to think that the mind can do a bit of traveling around.
Yeah.
Because, it's very unclear. Our reality is kind of, our physical reality reduces to contradiction. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this idea. This was known to, go back to Plato again. Actually, the pre-Socratic philosophers right before him, it was well known that you try to describe the basic things about reality, and they all are described by contradiction. For example, if you shoot a bullet across the room, try to describe the motion. Every single description you can come to, down to the most fine-grained analysis, is going to be described in terms of stillness. And you're like, wait a minute, I can't describe I've got some videos I did on YouTube on my channel about this, but this is well known. You just go look up the arrow paradox of philosopher Zeno, Zeno.
Okay.
And this is the problem. I mean, our reality is a little bit it's quite a mystery. And to glom onto it and think that this physical stuff makes perfect sense. A lot of philosophers through the ages have just thrown it out and said, no, it's just all some sort of a mind simulation, or it used to be called idealism. Like, no, what you see in the physical is just, more than anything, is just ideas in your mind.
Yeah.
So that's why a lot of religious seekers would eat the peyote plant, or would do go on the vision quest, and then they would travel to, do shamanic journey, and you find out there's a whole other world out there, which is either filled with, usually, when you do this kind of religious journeying, every religion's got it. There's Jesus in the desert with the devil, and you've got Siberian shamans ascending into the sky in the domains of ecstasy because of their drumming that they do on their vision quests. And it's kind of interesting that you go to the sky and they call it ecstasy, and you go to the underworld and it's called terror.
Yeah.
And this is a worldwide theme. In the mind is not. You try to look inside your brain and try to find the mind. You simply can't find it.
Yeah.
You can find neuron activity that seems to correlate with thought and feeling.
Yeah.
But I don't ever see the number 2 in your head when you're thinking about 2 + 2 = 4. And there's also, this will really get a lot of people to turn this radio show off after I say what I'm about to say right now. There's been people found that don't have brains. I go to my website, simulationtheory.net, go to the top intellectual stuff, scroll down to mind.
Yeah.
The first hit there is an article published in the journal Science, which is considered, in the dominator world of academia, is considered the most prestigious academic journal in the world. Or one of the top 2 or 3 or whatever. And there's an article right in there about a mathematics honors student in the University of Sheffield that was found. He had a strange shaped head, and one of his professors said, maybe go get that checked out. They did a brain scan. There's nothing upstairs. And this is public. Well, I mean, there's like 1% of his brain is there. No limbic system, hypothalamus. Where's all that stuff? This guy's an honors student of mathematics. Do we even need our brain? What's going on here? What's the mind? What's the brain?
Hey, Jeff.
What is all this reality that we're seeing? There's a lot of questions here that everybody just accepts and gets mad if you don't agree with. Well, you know what? The spiritual domain might have been the domain that was more real in the first place, and it's right above your head and right below your feet, possibly according to the flat Earth model.
Yeah. John?
That's interesting. No, I remember, if that's the same guy I'm thinking of, he had encephalitis or something.
Well, that's what they say.
Yeah, and it was just amazing because, like you said, what composes the mind? I mean, here he was, he didn't know any better. He wasn't limited from the get-go.
No.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody stopped him and said.
Some of these cases, people are, you can see, they're acting Forrest Gumpish or something. But, other people are honor students in mathematics.
Wow.
Well, see, I know. I do alternative therapies. We have an acupuncture place, and we do Reiki and other modalities of alternative therapies. And I tell people, I was like, a lot of times we limit ourselves based on the patterns that we have in our brains. We don't understand the true dynamics of how this universe works and the efficiency of it. And because we're always working off limited thoughts and limited patterns, we stop ourselves from what's possible. The bigger picture, so to speak.
Yeah.
So like even breathing, it's almost like, I hate to go back to movies, but like The Matrix, and he says, is that air that you think you're breathing?
Yeah.
Like there's a lot we don't know that we rely upon that it's truth or factual somehow.
And,
like the constant of gravity.
Yeah. Yeah. And,
if you clear away theory, I mean, all you have is observation, then you can start to really understand reality, and you get a completely different view than what we've been told.
Yeah, and to your point, Jeff, because you mentioned a while ago, I do tend to bring up, because people ask me all the time. They say, how do aliens fit into this and advanced civilizations? And you're right. I absolutely keep forgetting. It's like, look, there are probably civilizations or beings out there that don't need ships. They don't need, any artificial modes of transportation. They've gone way further than that, and they could be just hanging around. They could be the ones that are, they could be the lights in the sky for all as we know. You don't know, and
Or there could be another reality. I mean, we should talk at some point. Is there anything outside the dome?
Oh yeah. Let's segue into that, because I get that asked. Oh my God, so often. It's like, what's outside there? I say, well, it could be a big room, could be an ocean separating the waters from the waters above and the waters below with the dome. I know you've got an opinion on it. What's yours?
Yeah, I definitely have an opinion on that. It seems the religions don't really stray, to my knowledge, much. They're focused on the 3-layer cake metaphysics, upper, middle, and lower world. But I know that in philosophical circles, all the way back to before Plato in ancient Greece, there's a real simple argument that we have to focus on here to wonder. You've got our 3-layer cake world, but what's outside of it? Is there more worlds? And people are talking about egg cartons and bubbles, and in the bathtub. Is there just I know the Big Bang cosmology, there's a lot of that. Our universe is just a bubble in an infinite sea of bubbles. It's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
Pretty cool theory. But here's one thing that's got me thinking that there's possibly other worlds out there, and ours is just one pod, and we're just abutted up against a whole bunch of other ones. And that's the following. There's an ancient philosopher named Leucippus. It was Leucippus. He was, if I'm remembering this right, Roman atomist philosopher, because the ancient Greeks and Roman philosophers, they were atomists. They believed that the universe or physical reality is made up of atoms. And they said, hey, what happens if you go to the edge of, what you can call, the void or space or whatever, this, the edge of our existence in our 3-layer cake world. What happens if you go to the edge of it and that's all there is and there's nothingness beyond that? If you shoot an arrow, let's say there's a dome or whatever, but let's say you break the dome and reach your hand through into the nothingness. You can't reach your hand into nothingness because there's nothing. There's no place for your hand to be there. You can't do that.
Yeah.
So then would your hand just be repelled? Would it stop? As you're trying to reach out of our 3-layer cake metaphysics, out of our enclosed system into whatever's outside of it.
Okay.
But the point is nothingness can't repel your hand. So the point here is that if we believe that our world is the only one, we run into a whole host of extreme philosophical paradoxes, which are easily alleviated by just saying, okay, no, there's more existence outside of our enclosed world.
Okay.
So there's something out there. We're not the only thing.
Nice.
Then the next step is to find out what there would be. You wonder, are we just one experimental pod in the work of a great supermind that Plato called it the demiurge, Christians call it Jesus, etc.
Yeah.
That would be the next step. I mean, everybody's going to probably start fighting in conspiracy land about, oh no, I've got the right theory. No, I've got the right. It kind of reminds me of 9/11. Oh, it's the Jesuits. No, it's the Nephilim. No, it's the bankers. No, it's the Jews. No, it's blah blah. Nobody really has any verification.
Yeah.
You got to step back. I mean, if we're on the start of a revolution here in thought, I mean, it could take a decade for it to really kick in and change the world or something. But we should take our time, do this carefully, not fight with each other. Like I know people in flat Earth world are already starting to fight. I know people are picking on you, Mark. And, come on, what's the point? What do you want to do? Have egos, or do we want to know what's going on? Because if we can figure this out, we're going to be a lot happier.
You bring up a good point, though. Do we have time though? Is there any time left to get it right before we self-destruct?
The clock is ticking, in my opinion.
I think we're getting. What do you guys mean?
Well, meaning is it?
I don't know. Start with the IMF bank.
Are we?
Economic collapse.
Yeah, basically, is there enough? Yeah, there's enough drama going down around us. I mean, I don't want to bring up necessarily what's going to happen this September because I don't know. But all I keep getting is emails saying, you got to watch out for September. You got to watch for September. It's like, okay. But yeah, for me, let me take it a different way. I think we have enough time if it gets traction as quickly as it can. Because, and this is, people say, well, it could take years, but that's just like, yeah, if it was a normal conspiracy, if it was, I'm just going to call it garden variety conspiracies that are out there compared to this thing, because this thing goes way, way beyond that. I think this thing could get traction, which kind of segues me into a question I wanted to ask you anyway, because I find it really intriguing. Do you think this thing, I mean, the speed that's been multiplying now, do you think it can keep pace and keep expanding to the point where we either reach the 100th monkey effect, or does mainstream?
Yes, it can. This is different than 9/11. Earlier in the broadcast, I was talking about how this is, how it's similar to 9/11.
Yeah.
But I was going to get to what are the differences. This one involves religion.
Yeah.
And this one is in line with the Bible.
Yeah.
And man, I'm telling you, I'm bringing this up to Christians, and they're, oh no, that makes the Bible look stupid. Don't say the Bible is a flat Earth book, and no, And then I'm like, wait, look at these 47 verses here, and they're like, oh, and then all of a sudden, everything changes. The point is, if the churches get on board this, it's all over. The world will change.
Yeah.
And that's possible that can happen because people are going to eat this up. Because the churches in America, I mean, I've my wife's been a Christian for a long time, and I've been going to church for a long time. And man, I realized that there is a genuine sort of church movement in the Pentecostal churches and some of the Baptist churches around the country where, it's not what it's represented to be on television. There's some serious power, and people are doing mystical work and faith healings. And I'm like, wait, why didn't I hear about this on the National Geographic Channel? And all this stuff is out there. I mean, these people are fired up, and there's a genuine movement that's countercultural. I mean, people are going around reciting 2 Corinthians 4:4 about how, the God of this world is satanic, and that fits right into the whole Illuminati conspiracy theory.
Sure.
So the point is this just floats right into the church scene. And man, how many Christians are there in America? 50 million or something?
At least, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if they get on board, they will take over the joint, and this will catch on, and it's not like 9/11.
Yeah.
I'm seeing it happen already with Christians. That's my opinion. Christians will do it.
Yeah, I think you got a point there. Again, because we're in America, and that's where this thing it seems to be birthing. I have had, though, I got to tell you, and I touched on them, in the clues, because I wasn't, even though I was raised, a strong born-again Christian, I didn't want to play favorites, because there's 4 other teams out there that are pretty big, Hinduism, Judaism, Buddhism, Islam, and of course Christianity. But between those 5, all of them have contacted me. At one point or another, multiple people have sent me emails from all walks, and they've said, look, they've all quoted their own, chapters and verses of whatever books they had, and said, look, and then there's the off stuff, the stuff, like, I can't tell you how many people sent me the Book of Enoch, and the book.
That is
Where did that come from? It's like every week I can't, even though I told people in some of the interviews, I was like, look, you don't have to keep sending me scripture. I get the Book of Enoch every single week sent to me in its entirety. And they'll say, look at this stuff. And I was going, holy smokes, can you imagine, no play on words there, can you imagine if that book was actually included?
Wait, Mark, you get presents besides cookies? I got to start speaking up.
Oh, by the way, yeah, I've got to do a plug. We've got time. I love the energy, but I got to do a plug, and that is because I only said this in text. Please, by all means, send me cookies, and if you want to send cookies to Jonathan, also send those to me. Send them to Jonathan in care of me. My address is actually at the end of this video. But yeah, I get people that will email me, picture. Well, I get pictures all the time and articles and links and stuff like that. But the Book of Enoch is big. Jeff, I don't know if you ever checked it out, but
I read the whole thing.
No, not. I know you know the Book of Enoch, which is spooky. If anyone hasn't read it, read that thing. It is. Yeah, I understand why it wasn't canonized because It's pretty wild. It reads like a great sci-fi novel. But the Book of Jasher, there was a part in it which I got to mention, which was the end of chapter 3, the last verse in chapter 3. I think I told you this, Jonathan, where they were looking. It was when Enoch was leaving, right? He was taken off, and he was going to go into the great unknown, and he was walking. He was going by foot, and there was a whole bunch of people that were following him. And it got to the point where they couldn't follow him because he had crossed this giant area, this barrier of ice and snow and more ice and more snow. And I was going, how often do you see that in Scripture? In any Scripture? Because it's always deserts. It's dates and palm trees. And nobody talks about that.
Are you saying it's better than Battleship Earth?
It is.
It is a better movie. Enoch.
Better than Star Wars.
I think Roland Emmerich, the guy that did 2012, could do the Book of Enoch. I don't know if he did.
That would be awesome.
Wouldn't that be great?
That would be. I have to admit, I love that movie 2012. I like how the conspiracy theorist was right.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, it was. What was it? You heard it first from Charlie.
Yeah.
I'm really surprised though that whole stigma has died off quicker than I thought it would. People were saying, whenever a conspiracy thing, they put up a picture of Woody Harrelson and stick it in the post somewhere, and say, oh, you're just like Woody Harrelson and Charlie. But in 2012, yeah, he absolutely was right.
Well, going back to what we were saying about can this thing catch on?
Can it catch on? Yes.
Well, see, here's what's got me. I don't like to make this. Makes me a little uncomfortable, this subject, because it's a prediction, but hey, we got to do it.
Why not?
I don't like predictions. We got to go this way. But the thing that's got me is imagine yourself as a Christian who's worked in the cubicle. You watched Donahue and CNN your whole life, and you go to church, and church is really speaking to you, and you love it. And then all of a sudden, you come across Mark Sargent's video, and you're like, okay, everything. Science has just been de-verified big time, and the Bible, which is supposed to be a complete superstitious joke, is now science. I mean, what it happens is you don't just agree with flat Earth all of a sudden. This catches, and it has this whole ballooning effect where you start to question everything. The average person that's worked in the cubicle for the last 40 years is going to all of a sudden have their mind on fire because their religion, which might be the only thing that gives them meaning in their life, just got the biggest plug ever. I mean, this, it could get. That's what's got me wondering how this could turn out.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I said that, I initially when I made Clue 5, because I said, because people said, well, why would you hide this? Why would you hide this? And my analogy, I'm going to change it a little bit now, which was, look, if you give all the big five of the religions of the world, if you put nitros into their engines, they are going to frickin' run with it. And my initial fear was, okay, will they take it, but take it too far? It's like, let's burn down the science buildings.
Well, no, we don't want to do violent. I mean, just do our own thing. Who cares what the government? The point is we pay attention to them. If we ignored them and created I made a video called Thoreauvian Self-Sufficiency years ago, which is basically trying to figure out, okay, we all want to down the New World Order system, but what are we going to do then after? Who's going to build the roads and who's going to build our TVs and computer, all this crap people want? Exactly. And I tried to basically outline a model of how it would work. Yeah. But I mean, going back to this religion thing again, I mean, religion could I don't even just talk about Christianity because I don't know if I'm an expert enough to, talk authoritatively on one religion versus another or anything like that. I mean, the religions have serious power. I mean, take shamanism. It can bring you into what is today called hyperspace. People refer in shamanic circles, like Terence McKenna circles, as hyperspace. Oh, yes. It can bring you can see a different world. I mean, there's some serious power in Buddhist practice and Christian prayer and shamanic drumming and didgeridoo practice. Mm-hmm. I mean, you really get a taste of something that you had no idea was there, and you're like, wow. And it often is filled with tremendous ecstasy, which your cubicle life sure didn't have, and you kind of get hooked on it. Now, there's another thing. I mean, you guys have probably heard of sleep paralysis, that phenomenon, like it kind of was talked about in the Snow White movie with the, they call her the old hag at 51 minutes into the movie. And, people have this thing where they have these, people listening right now, many of them, I think 1 in 5 people have had this in their life. Uh-huh. You're all of a sudden laying in bed, and you wake up in the middle of the night, you can't move, and you're filled with the most unfathomable fear and terror ever. And there's variations. Some people have it a little bit, some people have it fully, and some people even report seeing entities and so forth.
Hey, Jeff, give 1 sec.
Let me add something to that. No, not only have I had that since I was a kid, I've done all the other things you've talked about, all the shamanic path work and all that, but about 3 years ago, Melissa was with me. I was making this horrendous sound in my sleep. I was yelling as if this woman, this old woman with a big hand, was pushing my head into the mattress. And she woke me up. She was laughing because she said I was howling. And she saw that my body was depressed into the foam of the mattress, like something was on top of me, pushing me into the foam. And when I told her what I was having the dream about, I was like, thank God you woke me out of it. But it was exactly like what you're describing this. And I'd never heard of the old hag before that. I had sleep
that's
paralysis.
not possible, John, because scientists don't agree with you that those entities exist, so it can't be real.
All right.
No, I know, man. It's unbelievable. I know so many people have had this. And I've had people come to me in confidence, and they don't tell anybody, and they're not trying to sensationalize this for attention or something. And there's a cure for it. When you mention religious entities' names, I know people will just, if you can utter Jesus, the whole thing like snaps off all of a sudden. The point, this is like a microcosmic example of a bigger issue, which is in my opinion, spiritual ecstasies and mystical prayers and the religious practices, those are the enemy of this enclosed Illuminati system that we're in.
Really?
I think that's the whole point here. When you look in the sky, you think you're looking at nothing, but in fact, what you're looking at is just one little tinge, so to speak, behind that blue sky is the domain of heaven, where God is that close. When you almost look at the sky, and it's like you're feeling that super intelligence of ecstasy staring right back down at you. I mean, you're getting power right there.
I hear you. John, go.
Can I ask you a question? Because Mark asked earlier about the particle wave phenomena, like when it's observed and how it changes form. Is it possible that those of us that
waves have never been observed? The physicists will talk about them all day, but nobody's ever seen a light wave.
Yeah.
Okay. But I guess what I want to ask, though, is it possible that when we avail ourselves or we see certain things, like I've had a lot of phenomenological experiences, you open up that Pandora's box to then have these kind of experiences after that? Like now you're prone to it.
It amplifies.
It amplifies.
I mean, that's why it's tough, because we live in the dominator paradigm of science, and none of this is supposed to exist. And then you get into a little bit, and then something quote weird unquote happens. Then you get in a little more, and more stuff happens, and more and more and more. And then everybody's like saying, I've never had one thing happen to me, and you've got 50 things happening to you. You've obviously are just mentally ill. But the point is no, you're tapping into another world that the dominator paradigm is supposed to keep invisible.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah. John's way more susceptible to that than I am. People have said, oh, do you have any psychic abilities? And I go, no. If there's a term for the opposite of psychic, that is me. I walk through minefields and I get to the other side, and people are going, holy smokes, weren't you scared? And I go, scared of what exactly?
Different personalities are more susceptible to that. I don't know if you guys are into numerology, and now even more people are turning off the radio show. But hey, let's go right to the point. If you can turn it off the radio show if you want, and before investigating and find out for yourself, and go turn on the Discovery Channel and believe the dominator paradigm then. But all you need to do is go pick up a numerology book and go to Barnes and Nobles or whatever and start reading a page on your numerology, and you will be shocked of how much, and then go read the other one that's not your birthday or not your name numerology, and it won't match up. I mean, this is. I don't mean to go religious.
Well, no, wait. Do you think that's
this
the
is what
code?
the religions are talking about? John 1:1 in the beginning was the word, and then there's all kinds of stuff in shamanic religions about the information about your soul is what you actually are. Your name is what you are.
Yeah.
But do you think that's part of the code, or whatever's written that this whole world or this experience is designed by, or even like Michael Drosnin was talking about with the Bible code, trying to decipher different things? Whether that was true or not, I don't know. But
I don't know much about those Bible codes, but I've got a lot of experience in numerology, and I've studied it with tremendous. I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to call myself an expert or something, but I know a lot about it, and I've just come to the conclusion that our reality. I'm not saying we're in some computer simulation, but I mean, what we're seeing, we live in this energy field of some sort. I don't know exactly what that is. I mean, if you do some Buddhist meditation or something, you can kind of start to see it and feel it. And, there's a lot of what you're seeing in your physical reality is created by your consciousness. Yeah. And that's where the numerological descriptions set in. And it just seems like numerology, I mean, the universe is mathematical. Okay.
Yeah.
But we don't really, we were told the dominator paradigm has this junk math that we're supposed to believe, but no, the real stuff is somewhere in numerology and all this kind of stuff. And you can just simply go discover it for yourself. You can turn off your TV for a little bit and then go look at it. And it just seems like it's the software program that the supermind in the heavens is using to create our reality. I mean, we're walking around through some numerological computer system with our free wills and bumping into each other. And this is something of the picture of what's really going on, I think.
Yeah, I agree. We got 1 minute to break, but I want to mention something because I had an email come to me a couple months ago by someone similar to yourself, John, with certain abilities. And she had said very similar to what you're talking about, Jeff. And she goes, it feels like there's a code here. She goes, it's like that there's something. She goes that there's a numerological code that's tied to this. Like if it can be solved.
Oh man, you have no idea.
It can. Well, if it
you want to point it out, we can point it out after the break. I can verify it for everybody.
We could do it. But she had said, look, if this code can be cracked. She goes. This thing will bust wide open, whether or not the builders want us to or not. And I go, wow, that's really.
So wait. Is that the golden thread that I've been searching for? That one equation, that one number that runs through everything.
Maybe. Oh, the golden ratio. Yeah, maybe.
No, the golden thread.
That's
the one
Plato, by the way. Golden ratio.
All right,
he called that 2,500 years ago. If the dating is right.
We are going to go to break, and we're coming back with our last segment and tons of energy and flat Earth. Jeffrey Krupp. Welcome back to Strange World. I'm your host, Mark Sargent. We got Jonathan and Jeffrey Krupp. We're talking about flat Earth. We are running on all cylinders. Where did we leave off? We left off on Bad Things Come in Twos. Said that movie.
No, we said that during the break.
Yeah. Well, you're right. We were saying that during the break. What was that movie though? Where Angelina Jolie was the assassin, Morgan Freeman was the
Salt?
The what? No, it was the other one. But it doesn't really matter. But there was a song that the guy from The Simpsons wrote. Bad things come in twos. Anyway, sorry, I'm not going to sing anymore.
Good singing.
Thank you. Love, exciting and new. Okay, go. Bad things coming to. Talk about.
All right, you really want to go in? Okay,
sure. Why not?
We're really getting into it now.
Yeah.
Okay, this is something I've never talked about with anybody except my wife. We talk about it every day.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Okay, so we're talking about numerology, the software program of the. Okay, if we got this layer cake flat Earth system with a supermind in the sky that's a being of intelligence and ecstasy that has created the screens of our mind and this world and 3-layer cake system.
Yeah.
Well, the software, I'm gonna go out on not a theory. I'm going to say it's verifiable that the software is found in numerology books in the bookstore, and let's just try to verify that right now, so we don't have to all travel to the bookstore tomorrow. Let's just do it. Okay, here's the deal. This is something I haven't read in a numerology book. I kind of figured it out on my own.
Okay.
When I was coming up with trying to figure out names for my children, I was studying numerology, and I came across the principle, because to try to find the best name for them. So because in numerology, the idea, it's the same thing that's found in Christianity. The thing is the name. Like whenever you hear people singing, they'll say Jesus is your name, or Jesus is the name, or they'll say in the beginning was the word. Everything's about words and names and sound, and it's like text is what makes up everything.
Yeah.
And, of course, then professional physicists come out and say the universe is made of information. I wonder, I don't know exactly how they get to that. I've tried to figure out, but it's kind of curious to come into a similar concept, even though that's the dominator view. But anyways, let's go with something we can possibly verify. Okay, so when I was studying on making my kids' names, I came across this principle that the first name is the most powerful in numerology, and the first letter is the most powerful. So if you've got a child with the name B, T, or K, for example, BTK, those are letters of calmness. So the whole name and possibly the whole child will be dominated by calmness.
Okay.
If you've got, AJS, those are intensely spiritual. And for example, and then there's all kinds of things you can do. If your name reduces to 7, you're much more likely to be a Christian. You could do studies on this. Some people are doing studies on this. But anyway, I came up with this idea. I'm like, okay, if the first letter dominates the name, the energy of the first letter, then why can't we take a year, like the year 2000 or 2004, and then say the 2 is dominating the year? So that means for the next 1,000 years, we've got, this is just a variation of a numerological principle that's very well held in numerological circles. Let's say for the next 2,000 years, the number 2 dominates the events of reality. whereas in the previous 1,000 years, the number one did, because the one is at the beginning of all the years. And so the idea would be we should be able to verify this. Now, two is a number of communism, not in the political sense. Communal. We're together. We're part of a pair. We're working in unison together. Whereas the one is individual. Yeah. Now, I don't know if okay. So now I noticed this other thing though. This is about maybe 2 years ago. I started noticing that it just seemed to me, I'm one of those dorky people that pays attention to every stinking thing in my life, and I make these crazy huge journals every night about what's going on. I just keep track of everything going on in my life.
Okay.
The average person, of course, isn't doing that because they're too busy watching American Idol and stuff, so this may all sound crazy to them, and, but go ahead, turn off the radio and just deny it and believe what you think without investigating it.
Are you talking like Jim Carrey in 23? That extreme or no?
No. That's just a movie to sidetrack everybody.
No, he's talking about Kevin Spacey in Seven, where he made all those journals.
Okay, go ahead.
So the idea here then is that what I started noticing is it just seems like everything's happening in twos. I mean, you got to kind of look at your life carefully to notice this, but it's not just, okay, I stubbed my toe today and I stubbed my toe tomorrow, or somebody got a tick bite and then 2 weeks later my other kid got a tick bite, or I'm walking on the trail and I find a tick on my one kid's leg, and then a mile down the trail I find another tick on. It's not just, it can be whole times in your life, like 1 year. The events will repeat. Like you've got a child that's, started a new school, in the fall of 1 year, and then you notice this other year, 2 years later, is repeating, or maybe it's the next year in a row, and then you notice that you're like, oh, they didn't start a new school, but they're starting a new class in the fall, and all their friends are not in their class, so it's like they're starting over new again. You got to look real carefully for all this stuff, and you can even find it in political events. If you see one big political story coming up, typically you'll see the story repeat. Like, for example, we just had an earthquake here in Michigan. I mean, I've lived here my whole life, except for a couple years I lived in New Mexico. And we've never had an earthquake. And all of a sudden we just had 2 in 2 months. Now, of course, people say aftershocks and stuff, but they weren't near each other. One was by Galesburg and one was more by Battle Creek. And even if they were aftershocks, still you've got 2 is the point. I mean, my wife, she didn't believe any of this garbage at first, but she just kept seeing it happen. I would predict stuff to her. I told her, I said, when there was that earthquake in Galesburg, 6 weeks ago, I said there's going to be another one, and it's not going to look like an aftershock. It's going to be its own individual earthquake.
Can I ask you a question?
Uh-huh.
What do you do when you notice this happening in your own life? Because I'll give you an example. There's times when I'll go to a client's house, let's say, to work on a computer, and they could be 20 miles from here, and I've never driven down that road my entire life of being here in New Jersey. Within a day or two, I'll take that exact same route and work on their neighbor 2 houses down, and I'll ask them, did your neighbor tell you about the work I did on their... No, why? I was like, well, how'd you find my number? Oh, it was in the Yellow Pages. I was like, yeah, but I didn't advertise except for 7 years ago. And I have this kind of phenomena happen on a regular basis where things will come in 2 immediately after.
So you've noticed this. You're the first person that, I mean, I can't believe it. That's interesting that you have.
He notices these things.
I notice a lot of things, and I can't talk about it on the air or else we'll all go to bed.
Is your birthday on the 11th?
No, it's April 4th, and my son's name is Kai. Okay. And I agree with what you're saying with a lot of things. So, we got to talk off air, man. We're maybe off the planet where it's safe.
You mean the flat plane?
The plane.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm just.
That's okay. He's NASA. He's supposed to say that.
I have to. They pay me.
Yeah.
Every time I say that and Carl's Jr.
Nice. Oh, great.
Now what was that a reference to?
Well, no, I just know that you're going to get 2 checks now, one from Carl's Jr. and one for Ness. That's free. I get nothing.
Idiocracy. Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I knew you guys were psyop. Hearing that.
Oh, by the way, I got to throw this in there because we got time. Anybody that says that I work for NASA because Jonathan and I joke for it, remember that I opened the show that we're broadcasting from a spaceship. So don't, if you're going to take the NASA thing, you got to
think from the distance.
Yeah, it's like, look, that we're actually in a spaceship, and of course we are because, we get great bandwidth up here. So anyway, go on. Go on. So where were we? Sorry. Everything
theory. That's what I call it.
That was it?
Well,
so
if you've got a tick, the tick thing, I remember this one time, this is a year ago. We're walking on this trail near my house. We got our kids.
Yeah.
And then, so I'm sitting here, of course, me and my family's hanging out, and like when there's little lulls in the conversation stuff, I'm thinking about all my crazy philosophy and stuff. So then my one daughter gets a tick, and I'm like, Oh, okay. I'm going to be on the lookout for another tick because of this crazy two theory that I'm thinking I'm seeing all over the place. And sure enough, one gets a tick right away. Now I've got this other part of this theory where the more significant the event, the larger the gap of time between them. Like, for example, if you have a child that dies, then it may be 4 years or so ago, but then you're going to have I don't know, some big amount of time will go by, but, maybe a real traumatic death of a pet will happen or something like that, and then, but it'll be two, but anyway.
Yeah. Got it. Got it.
So then I've noticed there's also patterns. Like if you get two quick in a row, then there might be a space and then another two quick. I call that two space two. It's just this little thing I've invented in my mind. I can't really believe I'm talking about this on air if you want the truth. These are all my own personal little crazy theories.
That's okay.
But no, so then we're walking on this trail and then all of a sudden, my other daughter gets a tick on her leg. I'm like, whoa, that was quick. I'm like, okay, well, that must be it. And then we're walking for another half hour and then my son gets a tick. And I'm like, okay, the two theory just got blasted out of the water because it doesn't make any sense anymore because that was three. So I'm like, that's a big, because I'm always looking for contradictions to this crazy two theory business because I want to know if the theory's right or wrong.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I got a tick walking right on my friggin' arm right at that moment. So there's two, a space, and then two bumped up. I'm like going, because my wife was watching this whole thing. I was telling her, I'm like, watch, there's going to be another one. And then, so she's freaking out. Saying, I'm emailing her later saying, now, do you see what I mean? How weird this is getting with this crazy reality, this computer simulated reality we're living in. It's like we're in this computer code or something. There's all these patterns and nobody can pay attention to it because they got TV, cubicle, and all their stupid addictions. And then they are just going to say we're nuts because they haven't looked into the issue.
Yeah. Jonathan, go.
Well, no, I was going to say, I brought this up to you, Mark, once before. Imagine if you were put to charge to catalog everything in the slice of one fraction of one moment in time.
Yeah.
Remember we were talking about this?
Yeah.
And almost like a flip book, how would you then look at everything from that perspective? Like you're seeing it in twos, and I often wonder about the duality. They talk about yin-yang and night and day and in this duality world that we live in. But this code, this thing that you're catching on to, I wonder if you're seeing the mechanics behind this universe, this like you said, simulation, this program.
Yeah. In the beginning,
anybody can verify this stuff, and this is the two theory. This is the tip of the iceberg, and all this numerological, mathematical dynamics everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll throw one more, and I'll throw two things. One was because I keep thinking about it, and I'm not the first person that came up with this. In the beginning there was the word. What if the word was the code?
That's the point.
Yeah.
What's logos? I mean, that's an idea and informational sort of energy coming from the creator. Boom. Computer simulated reality, and that's the code.
Yeah, as I told somebody today, I said, look, even the divine has tools. You can, people have said the God code, the God particle, all these things, but it's like, look, it's still, we try to break it down into things we can understand. By the way, before I forget, that movie I was talking about was Wanted, with James McAvoy, Morgan Freeman, Angelina Jolie, Terrence Stamp. But did you ever watch, I'm sure you remember the 13th Floor, right?
I haven't seen that. I want to, though.
Holy smokes! How could you miss the 13th Floor? It came out the same time The Matrix did. Because that's perfect. That fits in because everything in Hollywood is done in twos.
I've noticed that.
Yeah, for every movie, for Volcano, there's Dante's Peak. For Armageddon, there's Deep Impact. Any movie that has any substance, they try to make a similar movie. If you're going to do it in one, you're going to do it in twos. But the point was, Matrix and the 13th Floor came out at the same time. Nobody really watched the 13th Floor. I mean, it actually was a decent movie, and most people forget that it was actually based on. If you want to see the 13th Floor, go have fun and watch the 1973. It was actually a German movie in 1973, way ahead of its time, called World on a Wire, which delved, and that was when computer wasn't even in our basic vocabulary. That was and that was based on a simulation that once a civilization reached a certain point, it would try to create its own world within a world. And I don't know, and maybe that's the part where we're getting to now, where we won't be allowed to do it, because once you do, then everything gets blurred.
No, that's why you got to have religion, because religion cannot be touched. That's the one place. This is my opinion based on some experience. This is one place where you can get freed of the mind control Illuminati system. Yeah. I mean, you can see this two theory. It's not. I mean, it's not just two events. I mean, we're talking about. There's more camaraderie between people. Look at the National Football League. I remember when I was a kid going to Michigan State games, man, when the crowd cheered the hardest and loudest is when the biggest hits happened. Now they're banning that from football.
Yeah.
I mean, what happened? Did anybody notice this huge crate? They're making rules where you don't hit too hard, boys. I mean, this is football. I mean, does everybody notice what's going on? It's because people can't stomach this anymore. The world has changed, and there's so many incredible fine-tuned changes, according to the number 2 at the start of every year. Nobody's even noticing this stuff.
Interesting.
I remember when the Robin Williams, there was an actress that died. I can't remember if she killed herself or not.
Yeah.
But I remember when that happened, I told my wife, I'm like, watch, maybe a couple days or a couple weeks, you're going to get another big
high profile celebrity.
There's Robin Williams. And also the two events, usually one is bigger than the other. They're usually never the same level. Usually one is, say, maybe 30% and the other is maybe 80%, so to speak.
Got it.
You know, and often if they're real intense, they'll both be real intense, but a different, like, there's all this is all this my own thoughts, so other people have to verify this, and you have to do it honestly. If you go and sit in your cubicle for 4 minutes tomorrow at work and you say, I didn't see 2 things happen, so Jeff Grupp's a complete idiot. Well, you know, maybe you need a day or a week or a month to look into this. This is big stuff. Yeah. You might not get it after looking at it for 14 seconds.
Yeah. Let me circle back because we've got about 12 minutes left, and I wanted to talk about this because I want to harness this energy, and that is, when it comes to if people want to call it a flat Earth movement, you want to call it a waking up, an awakening, a 100th monkey event, whatever. This thing's spreading. I'm trying to tell people, you probably heard by the time I got to clue 10, I'm saying, look, write your congressman. Here's the reason why. Don't say flat Earth. Write your church. Here's the reason why. Don't say flat Earth. Write your corporations. Here's the reason why. Don't say flat Earth. What would you're going out and trying to tell people every once in a while, how do you broach the subject? Because I get that question all the freaking time.
I haven't talked to anybody about it.
Oh, you haven't?
Like looking at people's stupid expressions. They haven't looked into it. They haven't read any books. They probably read one book in the last year, and it was Danielle Steele. I mean, I don't feel like getting people's crap. I like talking to people like you and some of my conspiracy friends, where I know that we're being honest and we're not I'm not just talking to programmed robots out in the mind screen simulated reality that have every thought spoon fed into them from the Illuminati system. I know that's probably wrong, but I've been into conspiracy theory for what is it now, 11 years. And I just got sick of it.
You can't even, no, you're right though, because you can't, even if you put it into lay terms and try to meet them where they're at, you can't lead them but a few steps and they get that glossed over look in their eyes, like, and then you have to switch it to, oh, did you catch Survivor last night? Oh yeah. It's like,
yeah, that's satisfying, isn't it? That conversation.
I gave up on that years ago myself. I just couldn't do it anymore.
Well, even if you're a scientist, I remember before I was a conspiracy theorist, I was diehard into philosophy and science. I would talk about scientific principles, and I get the same stuff. And I just got sick of it after a while. I didn't want to. People formulate their metaphysics of the reality by the stupid television set. I remember there was that guy Bagdickian who wrote that book New Media Monopoly. He has that incredible quote in there. People formulate their ideas about the reality from mass media, and I'm like, so if you're not in accord with that, we're smart because we watch Donahue and CNN in 2020, and anybody who doesn't agree is dumb. I just have no patience, and I prefer to withdraw from the idiot social world of complete insanity into my own world of logic and mysticism.
You also sound like a friend of mine who got himself in trouble with certain groups because he did the proper research and put out the proper data and was told in so many words, you can't put this out, it's not appropriate for the masses.
Yeah. And by the way, I still get floored, because unfortunately, I, being who I am, I've got to talk about this with people, and I have been. But it's amazing to me watching people's reactions when, again, I can say, and I know people have heard this before, I can say Truman Show to somebody all day long. I can say, look, you might be a Truman Show. And they'll say, oh, that Jim Carrey movie, it was pretty funny, and it made you think, right? And then I'm going, yeah, and it's flat, right? And then, they get that glazed look over their face, and then, and it's like, there's nothing different between those two concepts. It's like either Enclosed World or Truman Show, which is why, again, I chose for the website, enclosedworld.com.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Because people, in fact, I think it was Canary Cry that was saying, you really should stay away because it creates this visceral response. But now I come back, it's like, look, it's unavoidable. People are going to have to deal with this sooner or later because the flat Earth concept is, again, it's easy to understand because it's such an old, it's centuries old, but it creates this, the conditioning is so thick that people have a really, really tough time dealing with it.
Well, Mark, let me ask you a question. Do you know anybody who feels like the Little Prince? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I've always walked on a flat Earth. Yeah. Right, the Little Prince had a little planet, so yeah, to him the world was round.
They get, again, it's and Jeff can attest to this. It's like, look, when you're messing, you can talk about other conspiracies all day long, and they will not affect people like this thing does. But and I've had people, if you heard the Ground Zero one, where I had an older gentleman, call me up and say, how dare you tell me the world isn't what I think it is? And I'm going, look, man, you do not have to take my word for it. I'm just saying,
think what you want.
Yeah, enjoy the globe. I should have thrown in that little dig is like, for as long as you can, because it's going to go away soon. But that's what I wanted to say, because look, there's no way I'm going back to this. NASA has, even if NASA came out and released, I think Trevor said, even if they came out and released 1,000 pictures tomorrow, it's not going to help them. Because everyone...
You know what? I'm gonna make you a Photoshop photo of you peeing on cornflakes and campfires. That's your new logo. You're ruining people's world.
I don't want to wreck. Like the woman that walked off the show. She was a co-host.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you heard that one? Yeah. But that's because she had dealt with multiple dimensions, but in multiple. But all those dimensions were spherical, and all of a sudden, I wasn't flattening out one of them. I was flattening out 7.
That's fundamentalism.
Yeah, and she couldn't take it. She literally could not take it, and she was like, "That's it, I'm out." And she was warned ahead of time, and I felt bad for her, but at the same time, it's like, look, I know this upsets people, and I know it's going to get to a point where there's going to be people that are, if this comes out and actually breaks wide open, it's going to rattle some people's cages to no end. I've just been trying to think of a way, of how this may actually go down. If
it's going to make the world better.
It will.
The UI stopped paying my mortgage.
Oh, whatever. Yeah,
Hey, if it's flat around, they're still coming for that check.
I am not gonna go on air and say, don't pay your taxes. No,
Mark Sargent says stop paying.
Yeah,
taxes.
Stop paying taxes. No. I mean, I'm just trying to think. It's like, if I had one wish, and I'll let you guys have the final word here, but if I had one wish, what I would do is, if it was me and I wanted to wake people up as fast as I could, it'd have to be something big, something really, really big, like if I had access to the visual system that was controlling the upper section, and I'm not getting into the spirituality part, Jeff, but all of a sudden, or tap into those guys and say, okay, you know what, just fill the sky with giant spheres. Of black and gray color all over the world, something super benign, leave it there for 60 seconds and then drop it out, and then tell me that you're in a place with planets. That's my little, it was something weird I came up with the other day. I go, that'd wake people up. If show them something visual, show them something they've never seen before. But anyway, That's my little thing. So, okay, we got 5 minutes left. Jeff.
Now what do we talk about?
Oh, well, no. What do you got? I don't know. Hang on. Let me look at my...
Well, we were talking about, what made me really... There's not one thing. I mean, there's so many... I mean, the merry-go-round, there's engineering problems with buildings can't be built properly.
Yeah, no, I got one. Let me do this for you, because I respect your opinion here. If you had to, for those people that are listening out there for the first time, and because it's like, how do I approach people? If you had to come up with the easiest way, something, again, for the layman, the lowest common denominator, a person that's not good in math, what would you tell them? It's like, look, you want to question the ball, you want to question the globe, the sphere. How would you do it? What would you tell them? Something easy. Dumb it down for them. I'm not saying the audience is dumb.
Well, it's specifically been created. The fabrication of the globe solar system is, this solar system with a bunch of globes floating around. I mean, that's specifically been designed where it's very hard for people to, unless you're really paying attention. Yeah. I mean, you can get a whole PhD in planetary science and never notice all that quirky stuff about the sidereal year I mentioned. But that's what I would go with. I would go with all the weird stuff about the solar system.
All the coincidences that are in the solar system.
Yeah, there's more than we listed. There's a whole bunch of them, and it just unless you've got an intelligent designer, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, you have to come up with the most amazingly weird elliptical orbits with axes and coincidences and everything to make the whole thing work, and it's still nobody can explain the stupid moon.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I had some guy to me today. He goes, I
mean, the moon's right there. We don't have a clue what it's all about.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Academics are saying that.
Yeah. I had a guy say, because how the rotation, how it never even comes a fraction of a degree off. It never rotates super slowly to where we see the other side. It's always perfectly locked in with us.
Oh, they got you. They covered that base, man. They got tidal locking.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know how you can have. I thought with gravity we're supposed to have objects form spheres, and there's a uniformly created spherical object because that's what so how does all of a sudden one part of the planet lock onto the one part of the moon lock onto the gravity more than the other part? It simply doesn't make any sense to me, but they've got all kinds of great theory to drown you with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, in fact, I had one guy today say that he goes, I got a thought of how the moon is locked. It's not tidal locking. He goes, the aliens have mined the other side so heavily that it's lopsided, and so it can only.
Theoryland again.
What the what?
Then we're in Theoryland again.
Oh, I know. No, I thought it was pretty fun, though. I was going, hey, that's not bad. No one's ever told me that.
I like it better than tidal locking.
Yeah, I did too. I was going, that's not terrible. I don't like it, but it's not terrible. I've heard worse, and most of it comes from science.
At least it doesn't involve a contradiction.
There you go. Couple minutes left. Jonathan, before I'll give Jeff the final word. Jonathan, you got any more things you want to throw at him before we...
Because of you, the government's going to come up with a flat tax. That's my prediction for 2016.
Wow.
A flat earth tax.
No, the flat tax is actually even funnier because.
There you go.
Did you mean to make it? That's funny. That's really.
I claim to know nothing.
That's really, really good. Thanks, man. No.
Well, it will be a flat. You're using up too much of the plane or something.
Guys,
No, I think that with the flat Earth, I mean, this is a chance for. We're told in the Dominator paradigm that your life means nothing and you're gonna die soon. I mean, we already know there's deathbed visions already are showing us verification that there's an afterlife. I mean, but nobody will talk about that in academic circles or on the Discovery Channel, or maybe somebody did in the Discovery Channel. I don't know, but I mean, the flat Earth has a chance to finally get all of our meaningless, purposeless, confusing lives some serious meaning and purpose and significance. All of it, I mean, because we'll know all of a sudden we're looking up into the sky and we'll know right past that blue what's there. If you are, I mean, the point is, like I said earlier, if all the primitive societies and the world religions are kind of in agreement here on flat Earth, then they're probably we kind of got to go with them on the next step with the layer cake, and then all of a sudden we're all going to be sitting here praying into the sky, and all of a sudden you might feel something ecstatic right in the core of your soul, feeling right back, and that could be that.
How bad is it, sir?
It's not